I think it's 9 years now because I created a profile late on Drupal.org, as you do. Um, so welcome to the session. It's about Drupal testing traits, which is an extension for Drupal testing system. My name is Jibran Ijaz, and I am a core developer. I maintain shortcut and contact module in core, and I have almost 400 or more commit mentioned in Drupal core. Um, so before starting, how many have you written PHP test in in core or for your projects, for client projects? Yeah, a lot of us. So yeah, if you are a very advanced user and you are rigorously, writing tests for your clients or core or contrib modules, this is the one slide for you. Just install the library and start use that trait, and you are good to go. You can write tests. If you have any advanced questions, we can tackle them in BOF. If you have any suggestions, we can discuss them at 12:15 in the BOF. And if you have any suggestions related to the session or the library, we can answer them in Q&A. So first of all, let's start from the background about the testing. So we always start from the core. In core, we have unit test, which is really good if you have a simple, reasonable code which is doing only one thing and one thing you want to test. So unit tests are good for that. But when you start expanding your test your code and you start interacting with the different APIs and different subsystems, you can mock some of the stuff, but you don't want to mock a lot of stuff because it starts getting very complicated. So for that, Drupal provides a very hacky solution, in my opinion. But it's a very extendable solution, and it's very practical that you just bootstrap particular part of Drupal, power up particular APIs, and then start using those in kernel tests. So kernel test is really good for that kind of functionality. And a lot of time when you are delivering an API completion or adding an API, kernel tests are really handy to test that functionality. Then, because Drupal aims to provide a complete product out of the box, so you have a functionality. And sometimes that functionality is about the admin page is appearing correctly and the feeds are appearing correctly, and you can select the drop down and you can scroll up and down. So there are functional and functional JavaScript tests based on your need, and then these are all these tests are just not limited to PHP. They can all not with the exception of kernel test, other tests can be written in JavaScript as well. So when next step is as a contrib maintainer, you write a test which is similar to core. Every concept is similar. The workflow is very hard coded there, but recently we have some improvement at Drupal CI, and we can make some changes. We can even apply patches to the core, but there is no official documentation around that. The one thing I kind of love and hate about Drupal CI is that you always are testing your contrib modules against the head. Sometimes you want to support the older versions, which you can, but only the head, not just the particular tag. Because as a contrib maintainer, I want to keep the older version compatible with the older version of core. So this is really work in progress right now, and we are working towards improving that. And the DA and Drupal CI setup has been getting revamped around this. Like the ideas are how we can improve the CI stuff is really getting motion, and we are going to use GitLab in recent future. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. And then third, which also is true for the distributions. AGov, we are hearing a lot this weekend. Other than that, Thunder, Lightning, things like that. And the client projects falls into the same category. So our distribution aims to provide a functionality out of the box, and what kind of test we write for the client projects. So by definition, Drupal is Drupal is there to provide the building blocks for your library, for your product. And when you are building something, you are writing mostly want to test the functionality. That's why there will be a lot of functional tests in client projects or in distributions. But sometimes you have domain object which is doing which has a method which is doing the specific thing, or a couple of domain objects. You can write unit tests for them. And then once you talk about the client projects and functionality, the kernel test concept goes out of the window, because if you are writing a custom entity for your client project, you would rather test the functionality than checking the specific particular instance of communication between APIs, because that's core's job. If that is broken, then you should report it to core and fix it there. So this is the landscape of client project testing. So how do we do the client project testing in general? So there's one way to do is the core way, which is it's the same testing principle which core follows. You spin up a test site. During the site installation of the site, you choose the installation profile. You enable a bunch of modules during the installation or after the installation, and then you create config and import config, or create content and import config to your testing site. And this is just happening for single scenario, and it will happen again and again for every scenario. Once the scenario is done, you save the artifact and you just tear down the testing site. And that testing site is there for this, for that particular scenario. Similarly, there is another, very popular and famous way, the behavior-driven development, it's a very good solution if you are just want to test the behavior of the site or the user. You can just drop in the library, run the single scenario, and if you have a custom step there, you have to write some magical code behind the scene, which can be complicated to maintain and handle. But it's the same thing. You have custom steps there, you run those scenarios and you save the artifact and you look at the results afterwards. So if you think about that, we have a problem that core is installing a site from the start, and it's just one single testing site. Why would I need a testing site if I have a client project already bootstrapped? This doesn't seem right for the project or the project domain I'm handling right now. So what you do, you want to have something related to behavior-driven development, where you can have an existing site and run your unit test on top of that, so that you can have best of both worlds. So the conversation started happening in core about how we can do that with the existing browser test-based class in core, which is responsible of testing the functionality. And people like Sam and Benji, I think Sam is in the audience as well at this point. Sam, can you raise your hand? Yeah. So he's not here. Okay. So they wrote a patch, and it was a very hacky way where you are trying to decide in the browser test base whether it's for the new installation or the test site, or is for the existing site. From that issue and from that patch started getting a lot of traction in the community, because it was a very important feature for the distribution who were writing Behat test and doing the regression testing in Behat, which is very complicated and very difficult to do. So at that point, this idea of having, some traits which can just be used in your testing methods and just perform the stuff you can do, and use the existing site, maybe use the existing content in some cases, and just check the homepage functionality or the drag and drop or the drop down menu functionality. So it is a very essential feature if you are interested in testing your client sites and client projects. So one simple step you need to do, because most of the projects in Drupal 8 are now built on using Composer. So just require this library, this package, and you are ready to go. The next step is, if you have existing tests in the project, you should have a PHP unit.xml. If not, then you can just add these lines and create a new file. It is making sure that you have two existing newsfeed on your site, existing site for functional tests and then JavaScript tests. These path can be customized according to your setup. It is using the web directory as a root of Drupal. You can use any folder for that. And then based on your platform. So after doing that, all you need to do is copy the base class into a custom module or your custom profile for the site. I personally prefer a profile because it identifies with the site, and you can have global functionality and global classes which can be used throughout the project, anywhere can reside in there. So just copy the base class from the library to your functional testing directory, and rename it or change the namespace according to your naming convention or the name of the profile. And you're good to go. Instead of using PHP unit-based class, you can just, or browser test-based class, you can just go ahead and use the existing site-based class. The most important thing about testing with the existing site is the content, and how do you manage or create that content. So there are some competing theories about that, and I always liked that a test should be contained and should create its own content and should be responsible of deleting that content as well. So by default, Drupal core provides like these and other content creation trait as well, and Drupal testing trait library provides the wrapper around that, which ensures that when you are in a testing scenario, you create the content for that test, and after the test is done, your content is deleted, and it's not interfering with the existing site. The other competing theory about this is you can have some kind of a migration system, or the install the default content during the installation of the site, or the setup process of the test. It can be a YAML content, it can be XML content, it can be a CSV. And core is following one of that pattern for Umami profile, which is a CSV content. And during the long run, I have seen in Drupal 7 when we were using Behad extensively instead of the framework provided by the core, is that it's difficult to maintain because content types change a lot during the life cycle of a project. A client wants to make some field required, and they want to add new field and remove some fields. So this piece of content, which is in YAML or CSV, is just sitting there, and there is no active way to test that. So if you are creating your content in the test, it will make sure the test will make sure that that content is up to date, or it start failing, and it will not work correctly with the new changes in the content types and the data model. So here's a very simple example. As you can see, the base class is their existing site test base. and there's a node creation test, how you can create nodes, and it's just as simple as in Drupal core, just create the node type article and start asserting your functionality and the rest of the stuff. So there is no learning curve with this. You just drop in this library and start writing tests the core way. We talked about the JavaScript testing, why that is important for client projects, because some people like to have carousels and videos and drop-down menus and hamburger menus on their site. As you can all test these functionalities and as well as the different viewport of the site for mobile and responsiveness or iPad views, tablet views. So there are two ways right now in the Drupal testing trait, because we started working on this library, and at that time Selenium 2 didn't make into core, it was still a patch. We started with a WebDriver tool, which was readily available in the PHP community. But after that, we provide the Selenium 2 driver as well. So both can work simultaneously as well, but with different setup, slightly different setup, and they perform it's the same way headless Chrome or Firefox or any other browser you would like to use with that. One benefit of using Selenium 2 driver is that you can also use it with the JavaScript testing framework provided by Core in JS, because the JS testing framework in Core is also using the Selenium 2 drivers. So it gives you the additive benefit that your site can have PHP-based JavaScript test and JavaScript-based JavaScript test as well. And we have seen a lot of success where a front-ender is making the changes for the design of the site and writing the accessibility test and making sure the site is not failing particular scenarios and the HTML and structure is correct. Let's talk about briefly the local and CI setup. It's same setup for local and CI. It uses Docker Compose file. It comes by default with the project. You can either copy stuff from there, get the ideas, or you can just use as it is. Project is hosted on GitLab, so Drupal CI, Drupal Composer YAML file is actually is used to run the test. So all you have to do is you have Docker Compose executable on your system, and then does Docker Compose up, and you are ready to go and start running tests. And this allows you to run tests on any CI, like Circle supports that, Travis supports that, and you name it. The upcoming features is first of all, we want to improve the documentation so that the learning curves is minimalistic for people who wants to write tests. If even you are familiar with writing unit test, you should be able to write the functional test for using this library, and then we would like to provide more content creation traits based on the usage in or the client projects. Normally we deal with nodes, but with Drupal 8, custom entities is a big thing. You can create custom entities and custom content using that as well. So that is something which we would like to improve, and it's an ongoing process. How we can shape this API. Right now, the project is in beta release, and we haven't seen a lot of, I think earlier this week there were some multi-site issues reported, but I think it's just the documentation issue. We can fix that without any code changes on the side, on the project side. But our aim is to release the stable version of the library and be readily available for distributions who are writing Behat test for wrong reasons to test the regression on the on their sites and for their releases. And of course, we are always open to new features and happy to fix all kind of bugs. And I think that's it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to answer. Feel free to ask them. And if you have large discussion, or you want to pitch something which you would like to have in the library, I have set up a BOF at 12:15, so we can have that discussion going there as well. So please.
Questions, anyone?
In one of your slides, you said that the hat is not good for regression.
Yeah.
Can you explain why?
Yeah, so regression testing is, there is a very good blog post around this on Medium from one of the maintainer of Lightning, that he started using Behat for regression testing, and now he is digging his grave too deep, and he's unable to maintain those stuff because if you want to test some functionality which is broken on the site, and it's not affecting the user UI of the site, it's just some backend stuff like the file field is not working, or upload is not working for some reason, or some field is not appearing because of some condition. You would rather test that specific thing for the specific failure, because regression tests should contain only that part of fix. So Behat is just like to test the behavior, and there is a lot of online discussion. Even the author of the library said that it's a behavior-driven testing tool. Don't ever use it as a replacement of regression testing. It's not recommended at all.
So we have a lot of web test space. How would I go about upgrading those?
So first of all, if you have web test base, you have to convert them to browser test base, and then just swapping the class with this base class, it will do the magic trick for you. If you have, because it's a testing code, it starts failing on the CI, and you can just fix those failing tests. You are not changing any functionality for your code or for your client project, so it's safe to assume that if you fix all the fails after changing the base class, you're good to go.
I'm just wondering how this relates to the already existing testing setup on Drupal.org sort of thing. Like, is it your intention that this would be the next step in that sort of system?
So the conversation started in core in a way where we were all worried about the time spent during the core test suite. And it's somewhere from 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes based on how long you have to wait, 40 or 60 minutes as well. And it is costing money to Drupal Association to maintain that kind of setup. And whatever we can do to increase the speed, be it in the browser test base class, or be it a new way of testing some functionality on the site. If you have standard profile install or Umami's profile install, why do you have to reinstall the content and re-import the blocks again and again? You can just install the site once and go from there. So there needs to have a larger discussion around that. How comfortable are going to be core maintainers about this, because this doesn't affect any functionality, or this doesn't give any benefit to the functionality. It just gives another way to test stuff. So we need a proper discussion around that. Why we need it in core? If we have to add that, what is the reason we are adding, and what are the benefits? You always have to have these larger discussion before making a decision about something you move into core. And to answer your question, for the testing solution provided by core on Drupal, it's very hard coded. You cannot, move features and stuff around and play with things. So this aims to, reduce that hard codedness with that solution provided by core.
Okay.